But let's just get that right down to brass tacks. Let's talk about
Yeah.
Ulsan. They lost their first game 1-0, of course, to Mamelodi Sundowns of South Africa. And the sun was down, Matthew. The rain and storms delayed the start of the game. And apparently, I read some comments from the Sundowns manager, and he said that the hour delay let them have more time to really work through and understand Ulsan's formation and their tactics. They weren't expecting a back three; they were expecting a four. And once
Mm.
they'd seen how things were set up, they were able to sort of have a good look at it. So the weather hasn't helped Ulsan there. But is that just an excuse? Can Kim Pangon really use that as an excuse?
Actually, that is a very good point because I guess the lineups and all of that would have came out before the weather delayed play. So yeah, it does allow for last minute tweaks. I mean, they as well have already submitted their lineup. It's not like that. It's like, oh, we're going to go and redo another one. They've also played their hand. So you could argue that Kim Bang-on, if he's done his scouting, which you'd assume they would have also had time to suss out how the Sundowns were going to approach this. So no, not really an excuse in my opinion because it's an equal advantage to both sides.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, you've alluded to this already with how sort of unmemorable the highlights were. But
Hmm.
from what you saw, how did you see the performance? I thought they did all right in the second half, but first half was a bit of a waste.
I think that waste is the key, the operative word here. I think that they had a bit of joy on the counter. I think obviously they had that chance early on from Eric, was it? I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, they had that early chance, and they could have caused problems on that. But I think as the game went on, you just said they actually played better in the second half. I just felt like players didn't show up. It was a bit disappointing to me. I felt that the big names that we've come to expect performances from just couldn't get into gear. I don't think Bojanic, he played all right, but he wasn't in his stride and his pomp that we used to seeing him. I felt that the players that we used to turning a game around for Ulsan had met their match in that sense. So maybe it's just a case of finding their level, but I don't believe that. I like to think there was enough talent in that squad, and it just didn't work. I think I've seen people mention Kim Pam-gon's substitutions as well. Probably didn't play into things, and I think as well Kim Pang-gon has got a bit of a record now, an unwanted record in international club competitions with Ulsan. The way they limped out in the Champions League this season,
Yeah.
it shouldn't really be any surprise that he hasn't got this one right either. So.
Which is interesting because when he was manager of Malaysia and he had that
Mm-hmm.
tactical battle with Jurgen Klinsmann and in the AFC Asian Cup, you would think that experience would have helped him sort
Yeah.
of being a relative minnow. I'm not saying that Ulsan are a minnow compared to the Sundowns, but just in a completely different situation against a side that you're not used to playing, you think you would be able to work with what he's got. But right, let's have a look ahead ourselves to this game. It is Sunday, 22nd of June at 7 a.m. Korea time, or Saturday, the 21st of June, 6 p.m. in New Jersey, or New Jersey, as they say locally. Now, well, Ulsan's record, as you alluded to earlier, their record in the competition isn't great. They are still looking for their first win in a Club World Cup kind of competition. What kind of maybe personnel tweaks or tactical tweaks do you think they need to do to be able to get that first win?
Well, to be honest, the first change they should make is probably the flights and see if they can get in a bit earlier. I think I'm going to be honest. I'm struggling. I know On One Sang's moved back a bit. Ludwigsson's also moved back. They're both in that fullback role a bit. I don't think the back three worked as intended. I think perhaps try and play something a bit simpler. The thing is, they've had the chance to be a bit more attacking. They've had because this has been the game that they were supposed to have won, and now we've got to think. Well, you've got to win these other games, but these other games you're not expected to win. So it's like, what do you set up to counter? I guess that's probably what you would do. I mean, if they get some joy with how they played at the beginning of the first half, I wouldn't perhaps change that element of things. But
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they have to move away from the back three, back five, whatever. I think Som Yong Gwan obviously went off injured, and I read that he wasn't in training on Thursday. So I think that might actually be a little bit of a blessing in disguise in the sense that you can make a change, you can bring on another midfielder. I think they should go for a back four, extra body in midfield, someone like Lakava. I think he should start. He was obviously made an impact when he came on. Someone who can, he's got good close control. He can play with him, play in between the lines and stuff like that. And also, I think Lee Jin Hyun is someone who I would like to see in. So I would probably take out Lee Chung Yong and put him as someone who can come on, and then when they need some experience and some know-how in the second half, maybe he should sort of be the one who's sacrificed, and then Lakava. Otherwise, I'd keep it more or less as it is. They're going to need sort of two anchors in midfield like Bojanic and Jong Yong, but someone like Lee Jin Hyun who can sort of keep the ball high up the pitch and try and recycle possession, win the ball back high up the pitch. And I do think I get why Kim Pan-gon put Ludvigsen and On Won-sang as wing backs. I get it, but I just think I don't even know what the answer is, because obviously you need to have bodies in midfield, but if you do that, you sacrifice width, and then they've got those two. They got Gosung Bomb. Do you take him out? If you do, you're going to put probably On Won-sang further up. I don't know, but I just think there does need to be a couple of little tweaks. And as you said as well, with that system, was that the wrong system? Was that the right system, but for the wrong game?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I think it would make sense to actually perhaps consider this unconventional fullback option, because it would make sense in these games where they need to have players tracking back quickly. But why did they play that in the first round? They should have played how we've expected them to play in their pomp, and I think Kim Pan-gon maybe overthought it there. Maybe he was trying to get it in, get this used. Maybe he thought the first game was a bit of a given and thought that he could try something so he could get it into play for the second and third matches in this group. But now he's left really with either continue to play something that didn't work or play something that's going to get exposed.
Yeah, it's got much to think about, I think, before the game comes around, which could come around quite quickly. Let's be honest. It's Sunday morning, early hours of Sunday morning here, but they didn't have a lot of the ball in that game against the Sundowns. I'm just looking at some of the stats here now. 32% possession, XG 1.02. So they 9 shots, 3 on target. It's not as they didn't create anything at all, but they just, especially in the second half when they did have a good goal, they had plenty of intent, but they just didn't seem to have enough quality. And maybe Farias was a little bit isolated. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting game against Fluminense. You've got a lot of quality. Should we try and hazard a prediction? I'm not really sure if we can. I mean, I think we all. I said the same thing to Tim Vickery, obviously, as you would have heard. We probably thought that we would never have thought that Fluminense would get a draw against Dortmund, or rather, that Dortmund would drop points against anybody in this group, really. So once we've seen that, and we've got all these different teams at different points in their seasons, who really knows? Can Ulsan get a result against Fluminense?
I think no, but I think it might surprise. They might actually, in a weird way, they might stand more of a chance against Dortmund, which is a bit odd in me saying that. But I feel like Dortmund could feel a bit exhausted. I don't know. They may also just turn it on if they know that they're going to go out the group. The clubs, these clubs with experience and things. Honestly, I feel that I'm trying not to be too negative. It's supposed to be the second podcast in this little Club World Cup series. It's supposed to be like, oh no, there's still hope. But honestly, it feels like two very difficult games for two very. I mean, I think Ulsan could be pleased if they score. Is how I feel. But
yeah, I get you.
They need to get something, obviously, but I just don't see it. I think Fluminense was going to
get the job done.
They've got the confidence from the first match, and they didn't think they'd get anything against Dortmund, and now suddenly they've got two matches ahead of them. They're favourites to win. They could, even go on to top the group, depending what happens with Dortmund. So, yeah.
Well, I'm going to say that Ulsan get a draw, a 1-1 draw, which gives them a little bit of hope for the last game, going into the game against Dortmund. I wonder if it becomes a situation similar to the 2018 World Cup, where South Korea, Ulsan, have to beat the Germans, and they do, but they need a result elsewhere, and that result doesn't go their way. There may be something sort of
Toyonu with a wonder match.
Exactly, yeah. I'm going to say 1-1. Tim Vickery said 2-1 to Fluminense. Can I push you for a score prediction?
2-0. I honestly don't think Ulsan are going to score.